this chapter was particularly interesting because I guess I get to talk about some of the Tiger Vessel theories and my thoughts on Setsuna's notes pretty naturally, I guess, because that's what I really want to start off with and focus on, because I think that's the most interesting part of the entire chapter, to be honest. And I think this more or less goes in line with what my thoughts are, although I will talk about how my theories may not be compatible with the notes that Setsuna has. So I'll bring a little bit of alternate theories that I can think of. However, what is the notes of Setsuna? Basically, Setsuna had an all-purpose notebook. We know this because he's basically in the hospital right now and they have access to it. And this is probably the stuff, or rather where he wrote down most of his, thoughts, sort of like a diary, I guess. I think it's more like a diary than anything else, but it's a book that now Oma, Ryuki, and all these people sort of have access to. So I want to talk about each panel in which we see something, because there are around 6 parts of the notes that we actually see. And so we'll start off with the first one, where it's basically called, there's THA called, then there's TH, worm, and then there's extermination with, which is W, and what's this, /A, and then there's THXX hospital, and then THA called. So this part of the notes seemed fairly simple, right? This is more than likely talking about the extermination quests that Setsuna was doing with Akoya. I think even Oma says that A probably stands for Akoya, and I probably agree with him there. It makes the most amount of sense, if I'm going to be honest. The only thing that's really a bit weird here is the XX hospital. Although, maybe that's where they're attacked in chapter 150, where they met Lutien, although that was underground. So I am a bit confused when it comes to that particular section, but everything else sort of makes sense. Setsuna was stalking people like Togita, Nico. No, not Togita, Nico. Yeah, it was Togita, Nico. And the worm at the time, so this sort of makes sense. They were trying to actively hunt down these guys. The next part is, it's just written false god. Now, this could mean a lot of things. However, I think what's important here is that there's someone here who is essentially playing a god, or wants to be a god, let's say. And why I think this is particularly important is because we know for a fact that Setsuna probably views Oma as an actual god. So if Oma is, you could say, a true god, there's someone else. And of course he also considers Ryuki that, because in the Berserker Brawl arc, he says that Ryuki, he was going to train him up to beat the old god. So we know Setsuna sees Ryuki and Oma as sort of true gods. And so the question is, who is the false god? I think that's the question that people have to ask here. I think it's Lohan. I think Lohan is probably the false god. However, some people might say Shen Wulong, which we'll get to his part very soon. But then the third patch of notes is specifically talking about Ryuki. We don't get any extensive notes here because it's really cut, but it talks about, of course, Ryuki growing stronger, and that he's mastered the basics of the Akoya style faster than Kiryu did. Now, Kiryu, Setsuna, was a prodigy. And so this is a sort of huge setup for Ryuki, that he has this massive amount of latent potential or talent. And really, Setsuna's like, I'm so happy, because there is the part where he tries to say that, I'm so happy if the Koei style, and we just don't see the rest of what's written there. So I think that this is specifically talking about Ryuki and how proud of him he is. Again, Ryuki is a pivotal part of Setsuna's life. We know that for a fact. And then there is the fourth image. The fourth image is a little bit of this Illuminati type of thing. I know most people will see that. However, I want us to look at the image and what it might symbolize here. Because I think this is a picture of essentially a god sitting on his throne. Now, Why do I say this in particular? It's because this triangle thingy seems to be sitting on what looks like a throne. That's what it looks like to me. And later on in the chapter, the very same chapter, guys, Shen Wulong is sitting on a throne in this chapter. You can go and read it. I think it's one of the second last pages of the chapter. And so I think this symbol is specifically talking about him because the eye of the triangle has a lot of eyes in them. And in a sense, you could kind of see this as like the connectors or the generation of the connectors. That's what I think about when I see this. This seems to be the most interesting part of all the pages. And so I think this picture represents Shen Wulong sitting in his throne, just like he is in this very same chapter. So to me, pretty big. Alright, I think this symbolism is very, very big here for Shen Wulong. The fifth one is basically Setsuna saying, I'm tired, there's really nothing to say there. Then there is the page. And that is that it says, they lied to me, the tiger's vessel is Shen Wulong, it was all a lie. Great, we sort of already knew this, because Faye said it was all a lie. Essentially, he hated Nico, so Setsuna's idea of the tiger's vessel probably comes from, of course, Nico. And I think Setsuna, kind of like Faye, realizes that Nico probably was deceitful in what he was saying. Now, people are going to link the tiger's vessel to the actual connector, Shen Wulong the connector. I'm going to separate him from Lohan. I don't think that's true. See, Shen Wulong is technically every single one of the clones we've seen so far. So the actual Shen Wulong the connector is, of course, he's literally called Shen Wulong. The clones of Shen Wulong are Lohan, as far as we know, Ryuki, and Oma. They're all clones of the same dude, essentially. And we know that Lohan is, because maybe Lohan is going to be a bit iffy. We know Lohan is a clone because Yan specifically, remember in the chapter where Wulong basically backhands Lohan, Yan says that, hey, it's kind of like hitting yourself. And of course that makes sense if Lohan is Shen Wulong's clone. And we know that he seems to be underneath Wulong, at least Lohan is, because he calls Oma and Ryuki his brothers, his older brother. And so they're all Shen Wulong. Essentially, that's what I think. Now, the only way this isn't compatible is if there's something wrong with my reasoning here. And that would mean that the tiger's vessel is meant for, let's say, the actual connector. However, I would argue that isn't really possible because, again, the connector or Shen Wulong just doesn't seem interested in Oma much at all. He calls him you. To Mokaku, he said, really, he's not me. And so I think Shen Wulong, because of those signs, it's just not possible. But this could be referring to Oma being tied to the connector specifically and not Lohan. That's one way it's not incompatible. But now that we're through with the notes, what happened in this chapter? Setsuna's alive. I thought he would be dead, honestly, but it seems like he'll be alive and he'll probably wake up way later, right? Like, there's no way he's gonna sleep in this, he's basically in a coma and just die. No, like he's going to wake up at some point. And so we get to the part where I forgot who this lady is, Akoya's girlfriend or wife. And it seems as though they're trying to warn her about, hey, stay away from Akoya. Because again, Akoya is insane. Something pretty bad is going on around him. There's just this dark energy around Akoya to where people that get involved with him, although, the people that have gotten involved with him, there's very little, right? Don't end up in good spots for the most part. And it seems as though he's been getting worse as time goes on, especially with the deterioration of his strength. But I really do hope we get to see some conclusion for Akoya, and I really do hope it's a good one, to be honest, because it would be a pretty good story to actually watch if he actually pulls out of his own darkness and this whole justice scenario. I really do think that would be a very good thing. And yeah, that's really all I hope for. And I think this has done a lot to build up the character of Akoya for me because, like, yeah, the badass and funny stuff that happened in the last chapter was, good on its own. But there seems to be a huge build up towards Akoya's character in a sense, sort of being like Kaio Mokaku. And Ryuki actually compares himself and Akoya's girlfriend or wife. Directly compares himself to her. And so, I think Kaio Mokaku, and it's probably late in the video so most people won't hear this, I think Kaio Mokaku is probably one of the best characters in the series. I really think he is. And so, if Akoya can reach his heights, that would be good. Although I probably have to make an entire video dedicated to why Mokaku is probably one of the best characters, if not the best character in all of Kengan. But yeah, that's basically the video. The Kure clan or Wu clan origins video is coming up. It's just gonna take a while because I'm working on the intro. So yeah, it'll be coming out hopefully soon. But yeah, that's it. That's the video. Don't forget to like, sub, all that fun stuff. And until next time, take it easy.